Welcome to today's episode. We're Ripe Media Group and we help marketing agencies scale their revenue. So if you want to learn how to take your agency business to the next level, make sure to stick around. Our guest is Bill Madden, founder and creative director at Color 9 Creative. Bill's been in branding for 35 years, helping companies find their true message and build brands that last. Bill, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be on here. And yes, you can tell by the gray hair that I've been in this business for a few days.
Yeah, actually, I promise we haven't coordinated our outfits. It was all by coincidence, but I am loving it. It's great.
We're on the same wavelength.
Yes, no, we are. Would you mind to tell me a little bit about yourself and your agency?
Oh, I'd love to. So I've grown up in the business, everything from the dark ages when we did cut and paste as a production artist, big old cameras, to when Apple introduced the computers on these little screens that you do illustrations. And so I've seen a plethora of changes within this industry, which has been exciting and given us opportunities and new tools. But the main thing that follows through on all of those things are the creative background that somebody needs to think differently, to be able to play and come up with different ideas and to make things original for my clients that I've worked with in the past to the ones that I do now. Worked as creative director for agencies, was a senior art director at Gateway Computers a number of years ago, been creative director and overseen in a direct marketing company, the web portion of it, the marketing side and the creative, to catalogs, to direct mail for a number of years. And then went on after that to be another creative director for another agency, a smaller agency at that time. And from there, we introduced and opened the doors for Color 9. And worked for companies like Starwood before they got bought out by Marriott Corporation, the hotel and resort company, and then ended up doing some work for Marriott. I've done some work for ConAgra, and Boys Town is a organization, a nonprofit here in town. Actually, Father Flanagan was born in Ireland, so over the seas. I'm in the U.S. So, hey, we've got that international connection there.
No, that's great.
So it's great so working with large organizations, but also working with solopreneurs and helping them to develop their brand and the foundation of their brand before we actually take them to developing the visual and the tonal aspect,
Right.
which helps them develop their culture, helps them identify how they're going to move as a company, and also how to develop their messages for when they're communicating to people, whether it's digitally, in person, traditional marketing, however that might be.
Mhm.
So that's kind of just a quick overview of kind of my background and 35 plus years. I stopped counting at 35. So
Oh, I see. Oh, I mean, I just had a recent podcast as well, and I have to say, it still left a lasting effect on me. And one main thing we discussed was reinventing yourself. And like, she was in the industry for a very long time as well. She still is. Reinventing yourself is how she survived throughout the times. So would you say it's very much the same scenario for yourself in order to, obviously survive in the agency world? Because if you're not going to adjust to the times, unfortunately, you will be left behind.
100%. We have to, as businesses, you pivot. That doesn't mean, so I tell people when they're developing their brands, it keeps your core of who you are, the thread that runs through everything needs to stay consistent. But that doesn't mean that you can't pivot because, 2020, life changed and companies had to totally pivot. I wouldn't be talking to you today over Zoom or how, those type of tools now that are available had that not happened. So we learn to pivot. We learn sometimes it makes us stronger. Sometimes it causes us to do introspectoral look and say, okay, do I need to change something totally within my business because it's going obsolete? In which case, what can I build on from what I have already to be able to move forward on it as well? And to me, that's typically when I find out whether someone is a business owner or they just own a business. Because a business owner has a passion. When things get tough, they're going to figure out ways to move themselves forward. What are the opportunities that are there versus what are the roadblocks? Roadblocks are there. You can go over, you can go around, however that might be. But they're the ones that are going to push forward to build their companies. And usually that takes them to the next level. Someone who is, I would call them an investor. If it's not making money, they sell it or they walk away. So in those cases, they aren't interested in brands. They're just interested in profit, positive, negative. So they're basically almost like a stock investor at that point. So I love working with business owners to be able to do that. And so if I was still doing cut and paste, like I had said at the beginning, I'd be out of a job. I had to learn how to use a computer, how to use it to be able to develop ads, to create those ads. And it actually gave us more abilities. Something that would have cost a few $100s to do a drop shadow on a letter before the computers happened, you can do within a click of a couple buttons, and it doesn't cost your clients anything. So there's a value added that nobody thinks of these days, but just little things like that, and we're going into this whole AI, who knows where it's going to end up falling. There's people who are pro, there's people who are against it. You're going to have to lean into it one way or the other. How are you going to utilize it as a tool, not utilize it as a crutch? And
Hmm.
how are you going to move forward to benefit clients, to benefit customers, to benefit yourself, to grow? And how are you going to incorporate that? So we're going through another big shift. You can either move forward or you're going to change careers one way or another at that. So how can you take that and utilize it to make you better and make your clients, make them better in one way or the other?
I love that analogy you just gave. You either use AI as a tool or as a crutch. So crutch is basically, I think you're trying to say you're leaning on it too much, which I notice some people definitely are. So you much rather use it as a tool than as a crutch and completely like leaning on it too much. At the same time, I think you need to have that balance, and that human touch is still something that AI struggles with, unfortunately. But we're only saying yet for now because we don't know what's going to happen in a few years' time.
I mean, AI can only pull in what is out there. So, you know, what's on the internet, what it's been fed, how much of it is accurate, how much isn't accurate. So we have to look at it. So that's just the surface level, let alone it can't. So from it, when I'm building a brand with somebody, we can utilize AI in certain segments, but AI can't tell you the heart of the company. That only can come from a person, the owner, whoever has started it, whoever is in charge and what they want to create. There was one podcast I was listening to, and they had said, all you have to do is put in 6 emails in there, have them look at your website, and it will develop a brand for you. And it's like, if you had AI write those emails, if they did the website, or if you just put something out there, that's not going to tell you what the heart of the company, that's not going to tell you what the core values are, which is like the rudder of your company when things get tough, your purpose, what that can only come from the heart of a person. So I don't see where AI will be able to do the first step of building that foundation, but yet there's parts of that step that you can utilize it to help you think differently, to challenge your thinking, to come up with different words that maybe you didn't think of, to look at things differently, and then you implement it back into who you are. You make that decision versus allowing it to. So the crutch is, I'm just going to put this stuff in. I'm going to let AI to do it and run.
Hmm.
And that really doesn't have a heart to it. And that doesn't have a passion to it. And then you can't develop a culture, a true culture for who you are. I had a doctors group that was struggling with the type of physicians they would on board. And they really hadn't done anything from a branding standpoint. And when I talk about branding, I'm developing the foundation of the business, your core values, mission statement, purpose statements, what differentiates you, your personality, stuff like that. Everything before you start even thinking about the look and feel, logos, content, any of that type of stuff, because then they can take their core values and hire according to those core values versus just going, this particular doctor went to Harvard, he was number one. This particular doctor went to a smaller school, he was number five. So obviously we want the Harvard one, when
Hmm.
in reality, if they have built a culture and developed a culture the number 5 one might actually fit better for them than the number 1. The number 1 might be there for a year or 2 and go, I'm not really happy with this culture. I'm better than all this. Number 5 might be able to grow into it and actually fit. And if you're interviewing according to your core values, it's
Mhm.
not that one person is better than the other or worse, but it's who's going to benefit the business better, who's going to be able to live and breathe that company value, which creates your culture, which
Mhm.
also creates your interaction with your clients or your customers or your patients, whatever that might be. So, looking at a business from the ground up can totally change the dynamic, and you can hire people according to. There is an author, I'm blanking on the name right now, that says getting the right person on the bus. That doesn't, if you get the wrong person on, it doesn't mean they're bad, but it just doesn't fit that company culture, and everybody isn't going to be working together as well. So,
Uh-huh.
and then
Uh-huh.
we'll take it from there and then build on the visual brand and help them with those type of stuff. But starting with that is huge for
Yeah.
businesses.
I mean, in regarding to branding, it's funny because you say that's the foundation. That's really the first thing a business needs to look at. But I see, and I'm sure you do as well, people and businesses start looking at this like through their mid journey, really. And then they're like, yeah, maybe I should really focus on my branding now. And it's kind of like they already started like years ago and only looking at the branding now. So how do you usually proceed with those type of clients? I mean, how does that work? Because it's like the whole business model needs to be reinvented now.
So once you've developed the core values, the purpose statements, you've got your personalities. So part of when I'm building that is creating attributes. Anything from, if you had a spokesman, who would that be? Is it a movie star, particular one, to maybe it's a local personality that really represents who it is? And it's just helping them think differently versus it's putting personality to it. When I'm working with clients, I tell them, think of it as a person. If you're talking to somebody, like for myself, if I send a picture of myself to a friend in California, they're going to look at that picture and go, oh, that's Bill Madden. I know him. He's a friend, he's a dad, he's a great guy. He likes to have fun. He loves helping people, educating people. So all of a sudden, that's my brand. When they see that,
Mhm.
my face is the logo. It triggers an emotional response to who I am, and then they can kind of describe me, whether they love me, hate me, anything in between. Uh, but it creates that emotional response. So once you kind of develop all of those attributes and what I call the foundation, like I said, there's ways you can narrow down, open up thought processes as you go through those with AI. But then is the time that you start utilizing those attributes of, what kind of food would you serve at an outing? Are you a beans and weenie, or are you a caviar and sushi, company? Those are two totally different fields. And once you can identify that, you can start putting that information into Chat GTP, into Midjourney, and it has the starting point. So it creates something that's uniquely you versus something that's just more generic, something that's going to be out there and all. Or in other words, it may even be like, oh, I think that's cool, but it may not necessarily be who you are from a brand standpoint, your visual, if you haven't created those standards to measure it by. So you
Mhm.
can take all these attributes, your tone of voice tone. Are you a luxury that wants to sound luxurious, or is it a luxury product and you want to be kind of quirky? So those are two different views versus a bargain, store that wants to make sure you want to represent yourself as not selling stuff that's not good, just cheap, but you're a higher end bargain store. I mean, those are different tones and different looks that you want to do. You have those to be able to feed into AI if you're using AI and those type of things. So you're going to be a few steps ahead. And you still have to look at it from the brand perspective of going, okay, yeah, that's on, or I don't know what my AI was on. It was on crack or what, because it's totally off. So you still have to look at it through your brain goggles to make sure it's accurate.
As our audience is mostly agency owners, do you have any steps for something they can do themselves? So anything in regards to branding, because let's be honest, I mean the marketing agency space is a bit saturated right now. So how would they stand out with their own personal brand? Any advice there?
They need to make sure that they have a brand. I mean, let's face it, most of the stuff that we have in this world is a commodity. You know, you can say how many different agencies are out there, what makes you unique from another one. You aren't going to get everybody, but what is your personality? Because we like working with like-minded people. We like working with people we like to work with. So that's who you're going to draw. And until you really identify that and be able to have that stand out with all your employees, from the receptionist, how they answer the phone, to people coming in, to your social media posts. Are they consistent? Are they all over the place? Are you consistent? You need to walk the walk and talk the
Mhm.
talk. So
Mhm.
if you don't have that, how can you expect somebody else? And that's trying to identify who you are to separate yourself out, because there are so many, graphic designers, agencies that, oh, we do the best work, or we specialize in tech, but what kind of tech are you in? What's the voice that you like? Are you more humorous? You know, are you a generalist? And there's nothing
Mhm.
wrong with being a generalist, but you're still going to have some kind of attributes that separate you out.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, I mean, from what I've seen so far, is they either niche down or they're more of a generalist, like you said, and there's nothing wrong being a generalist, but they specialize in these services like web design or SEO or PPC. They take what they're best at, and that's what they specialize in. So, would you say that's still a good approach nowadays in 2025?
100%. I mean, I would consider myself kind of a generalist. I do hospitality. I mean, Boys Town is a nonprofit and they have hospitals. They deal with foster care. I mean, they've got a whole bunch of different areas they work within. I've got two honey companies I've rebranded. I mean, and from a creative standpoint, I love that because I can use the experiences that I build with one client in one industry and utilize it in something else, because I can look at it fresh, because we can kind of get narrow minded when we're in only one industry, and we get, tunnel vision at that point. So utilizing that. So what I transitioned from is more graphic design. I've been a graphic designer my whole life, but I focus more on branding and then bring graphic design in, because in reality, graphic design has been, I mean, with all the different services now for selling it for cheap, all they're doing is creating a picture. They're pulling it together, like Fiverr and those different things that a lot of agencies are dealing with. I've changed it more to branding so that I can help companies build their brands, and they realize the benefit of having me take them to the next level, from their logo, developing their logos, developing their names, to if it's rebranding. Do they need a new logo? Does it need to be tweaked? What are colors? We don't want to be trendy. We want to be something that's going to be long term, and helping them go to the next level to support them in their communication. So consequently, since I know their brand inside and out, where are they going to stay? So it's kind of coming in the back door some days, but it's literally live and breathe their brands, so I can help them out. Versus if they're sending it to Fiverr, who knows what they're going to get? Oh yeah, meet something like this, but they don't know the brand well enough to go, oh, we want to turn right here and do something still on brand, but maybe just a little quirkier for this audience, versus just being an order taker. The advantage with what I bring is I can help them think out of the box a little more, push them a little bit more, but still stay on brand to be able to communicate who they are to who they want to, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it does. I mean, something you said. So, in regarding to branding, you said that's more than just the logos. You said it's a core values, there's mission, there's purpose. So, what I'm really trying to understand here is how do you uncover those with your clients?
So years ago, there's so many books about branding. And typically it's like They talk about Apple, they talk about Facebook, they talk about Liquid Death. I mean, all of these different brands, and they're great stories, but they don't tell you how to do it. And that was a struggle that I had years ago. And so, actually, just a lot of research and everything else, I've pulled together a workbook that helps with my clients to be able to go out and work with them to unearth, to dig down into their soul and pull out their core values and walk them through step by step in each part of those sections, even to naming the company. So, and here's a sneak peek that nobody knows. Within the next year, I'm going to take that book and publicize it for designers, for agencies, for business owners. To literally, it's the playbook of from start to basically through the naming process, touch points, things like that. Not the design aspect and the voice, creating the logo and stuff, but everything up to that point so that companies, so agencies and designers can be able to have those tools and resources to be able to use with their clients.
Well, that's amazing. I can't wait for that to come out.
And actually, if you go to color9creative.com under the branding spot, there's actually some worksheets there that you can utilize right
Ah.
now to help. One of my core values is to help others win.
Mhm.
And so providing some of those tools on my site helps business owners. And typically with clients that I'm working with, I've got another nonprofit here that is going to be launching a whole community, and they want to name it and figure out their brand. So I've given them literally the first step. I say, if you use me, great. If you don't use me, you at least have the resources and tools to
Mhm.
start at least identifying and start thinking through that. So yeah, color9, the numeral 9 creative.com. Go there and you can find some resources within there to help with core values, purpose statement. I think I've got just a handful of things there. So you can start stealing some of my stuff right now.
No, that's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's good to put some free value out there for everyone else to use.
Well, I mean, and it's a lead generator for me as well because I've got a home builder who's transitioning from one owner to and they want to kind of look at their branding, identify who they are, maybe do some rebranding. They're going to tweak their name, I'm assuming, a little bit. They're very budget conscious. And the fact of, I said, you can take these resources, you can do it, on your own. Typically, a lot of times what clients will do is they may start off that way and then just hire me from a consultant standpoint and I'll go over their core values with them. We'll spend a few hours there and I challenge them because they're thinking top level. And it's like, sounds like everybody else's core value. My job is to help them dig a little deeper and create something even stronger at that point, whether it's purpose statement, core values, missions, whatever that might end up being. So I do different levels. I've worked with CEOs and literally from the ground up, we're side by side, or in some cases here and like you and I, just on a screen
Mhm.
when it's not local and working through this whole process together. And the great part about that is I learn more about their business and I can actually even pour into them more to be more aware of who they are and understand their business more so that I can be more objective from an insider to outsider. Case in point, the last honey company, it's called Wild Honey Box. They were a wholesale company. And when they first came to me, one of the owners, she goes, "Oh yeah, bees are the most important thing. The health of the bees. We make Olympic athletes. I mean, they're like Olympic athletes, and we treat them like that, and we make sure everything's good." I'm like, "Okay, understand where you're coming from, but now that you're looking at opening a B2C division, your consumers, the bees are important, but they're looking for honey. We need to look at it from
The
a
end
honey
product.
standpoint." And that's where I say we can get into our industry so tight that we don't necessarily know what the outsiders are looking at. And that's where I love to be able to come in and say, okay, let's take two steps back. Your customers, your new customers, how are they looking at your company or your product? And that's what one of the strongest things agencies can do, everybody listening here needs to make sure they're looking at their companies from an outside perspective and to be able to get that information. That's what they're paying us for.
Uh-huh.
I'm not a yes man. I will challenge. I will give them my best advice. And at the end of the day, I will do what they want. But I
Mhm.
want to help them think about it and make sure they're doing what's best for their cut.
It's like you touched point on previously. Sometimes as a business owner, you have that tunnel vision, and that's why it's useful to bring somebody else in who can have a fresh perspective, like you said yourself. Because unfortunately, that's all she could focus on, the B's. But you told me when she moved from a B2B to a B2C, that's a completely different messaging that you need to focus on. Well, they need to focus on. So
Right.
you brought that perspective to them, which is absolutely brilliant. Because I mean, you know this, I'm a honey lover. I don't care about the bees. I just care about organic, real honey that is not fed with sugar.
Yep.
And you got that message on point for them. So that's absolutely brilliant testimonial there.
Thank you.
So in regarding to clients, how do they find you nowadays? What approach has worked best for you?
So for years, I've done a lot of networking groups, done some cold calling. That's the worst.
The worst. Okay, so you're one
I
of the
hate
ones that
I
don't
hate cold
like
calling.
it.
I'm not a salesperson, I'll be honest, which I was just talking to another person who's a newly business owner, entrepreneur, and she goes, "I'm not in sales. I don't know how to do this." I go, "Lean into that as your superpower because you aren't going to come off as a salesperson." And
I see.
my job is just to help educate, help give them options, help to direct. So just building those relationships. So networking, I had from one networking group I was in, I want to say 3 or 4 years later, if not more, and it was during COVID actually. This one lady called and said, "Hey, my husband is doing this software. They need an interface designed. Is that something you do?" I go 100%. So you never know how long down the road that it might actually come back to help you, building those relationships, building that trust. And then as your business grows, you build those relationships, then word of mouth happens a lot. I'm still part of a networking group, so I get leads from that, but I'm also providing leads for them, building those relationships. But even clients will reference other ones. The Wild Honey Box actually found Color Nine through another honey company that I'd rebranded. They went to their site and they're like, I mean, they had hired a local designer at first and did a great job on their site, but she goes, "It was more like patent leather shoes. We're more work boots, dirty work boots. We are living this. This is who we are." And then they ended up going to one of the big name website companies that advertise on TV and everything else to have them build their website. And she goes, "I was talking to somebody different each time. They they really didn't understand us. It was a struggle." So that's when she started looking at other business honeybee companies, and ended up finding Color Nine at the bottom of the website that I did. And they kind of knew the owners of that other one, clicked on it, reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you help us out?" And from there, we built one. So it comes from all over the place.
Hmm.
Social
Hmm.
media is, I would say, I don't know. I don't think I've ever gotten anything from social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, or anything like that, but it's still a way to be in front of people and for awareness. And like I said, another way that at times I'll educate people during COVID, I actually started dad jokes,
Did you?
posting those. So I did that for years. And then finally, in the last couple of years, due to a couple of circumstances, not legal, just some health things, I ended up stopping doing that.
Hmm.
And I actually had one guy in one of the networking groups that loved the dad joke so much he stole that and started doing it himself, which
So
I thought was great.
what do you mean when you say dad jokes? What, like in socials or like networking? Like what does that entail
On
exactly?
LinkedIn, on Facebook, I would just post dad jokes, and part of it was because COVID was such a hard time for people. And
I
it's
love
like,
that.
I just wanted people to smile. I
Yeah.
just want people just needed something different. So I was posting those a few times a week. And then after COVID, about once a week, I was posting those. So if you go to my LinkedIn profile,
You'll still
or
find them.
yeah, dig down a little ways, you'll find a boatload of dad jokes. So steal those dad jokes, use them wherever you want. parties,
Yeah. No,
anything
that's
that.
great, especially in such a critical time as COVID, because it's like you say, people were isolated, unfortunately. Like, we need to connect with people. Even like right now, even though you're in USA, I'm in UK, this is a form of connection for us as well. You can still kind of see the body language and like it's a human interaction, even though it's digital pretty much. And it's not the same as in person. It's still, better than just being isolated.
But face to face to me is still always better.
Yeah, you're not going to beat that.
But with the Wild Honey Box, I worked with them for, I would say, a year before I actually met them in person. And we were driving on, we went to go stay down in Padre in Texas. This company, it was maybe a 2 hour out of our way to drive down to hit them. But it's like we really wanted to meet them. So my wife and I, we drove over there. We got to see the shop that they had built for all this. We got to meet the whole family.
Yeah. Oh, great.
I mean, we all felt like we knew each other already because we'd spent so much time on Zoom and to build those relationships. And we were both open, we're both honest, authentic, genuine.
Hmm.
It wasn't like just this whole business, business, business. So we got to know each other. And the only thing I'd said for the son in law, I'm like, well, you are taller than I thought you were. Otherwise, it's kind of like you felt like knew these
Yeah.
people just because you've built a relationship versus you couldn't do that on email.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I with Starwood, I was doing work with people in China, in Europe, I mean, all over the globe beforehand. And most of that was done through email
Hmm.
and working with some of those. And you just don't build that relationship that, talking about pivoting, where nowadays we've been able to get on and at least talk back and forth. And you get to see body language, you get to see facial expressions, which totally change the interaction versus, a text message or an email or something like that.
Yeah, in regarding to obviously building relationships and especially with colder audiences, we talked previously about touch points, however many touch points it takes in order to build that kind of trust with people. I think I mentioned it's about 6, 7 touch points. I think you clarified it's a lot more than that. So how many did you do your research afterwards?
What I've seen more so is a minimum of 8 to 12.
8 to 12, yeah.
Yeah. For them to even identify who you are and getting in front of them, impressions, things like that. I think it goes down if it's a person to person, like if you've got a salesperson who comes and you're networking, you go out to coffee, obviously that touch point takes it a lot down, down further because you're creating an emotional attachment there versus on digital, whether it's video, whatever that might end up being. And also, they say if you're watching something on TV and, like, we'll say there's a commercial, you get up to go get something, get popcorn, get something to drink. They actually say your subconscious, they've done I'm blanking on the word, neuroscience type things that you actually are observing what the logo is, what the tone is, even though you may not be totally focused on it, you
Hmm.
actually the back of your mind is categorizing that and putting that in. So it's still a touch point, which kind of goes back to the old saying of, which to me is a misstatement. The old saying of 50% of my marketing's working, 50% isn't.
Hmm.
Because all they're tracking is what the final marketing piece that they think caused them to buy the product, where every touch point builds on each other till they finally make that purchase. So top of funnel, you're at least getting the awareness and then you're starting to build the relationship until they actually buy. Online has helped make that shorter,
Hmm.
but I don't think you're necessarily, I mean, if you're going to Amazon and you're looking for price only, you aren't buying because of brand. You're just buying for, something cheap and trying to get it, by the next day
Yeah.
versus building that repeat customer is what we want to build. And that can only be done over a longer period of time and developing those relationships, building trust, which is literally the core to a strong brand, building trust with your customers.
Now it's more harder to stand out than it ever was. I mean, there's so much out there. We're constantly being sold to. I mean, everyone's reaching out and direct pitching us. So, what would you say makes standing out harder now than previously, in your opinion? Because obviously, I've got mine.
What makes us standing out harder now is it's like you said, there's the noise. So, how are you going to be different than all the noise?
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's instead of AI, it's in person. I mean, building those relationships. So, where everybody is shifting to AI, utilize AI, but like I said, don't become a crutch. Okay, I'm just going to let it produce 20, 500 social media piece and it's just noise versus using it as a tool to develop the research, make sure it's accurate, what's going to speak to your audience, who you're wanting to do, and actually craft it to them. And then are there ways that you can personalize that to the people? And I'd heard somebody said the difference in the next few, in 5 years, where everybody's dealing with AI, the companies that are actually, if you've got a real person that's answering versus a bot and they know it, and there's, you don't have to escalate it, or somebody who actually shows up to your business and develops that relationship versus just doing the easy way of sending an email, here's the contract. Those are the companies that could end up making a bigger impact
Uh-huh.
on their customers. And I actually just heard that a lot of the younger generation, this was off, I think it was Twit, podcast. They were saying a lot of younger generations literally are pushing back from AI. The owner of Liquid Death, they had said they, in one of their videos they had posted, they couldn't find the actress on this particular photo that was, it's an old photo to get released. So they had AI generate this photo. And it was like literally a couple seconds on the video. And they had like 300 and some odd responses to it. And he goes, 300 of them was like, why did you use AI on here? So it didn't, it ended, there's some backlash with AI happening now too. So that's part of why you want to make sure you're authentic and original and make sure it comes off that way. So
Mhm.
depending on your brand, one client ended up of mine when they're doing their social, they used AI to generate a video. And it's like, oh, super cool. And the other person's like, oh my word, actresses and actors are going to lose, jobs and stuff. And it's like, that's true. I go, the problem was part of who you are is being authentic, of, building those relationships. Your product that's on there isn't even represented. It changes. You look at it, the voice was a little off. It sounded like AI. You aren't being genuine with your customers right now. And people can tell on that. And so making sure that if you're using AI, it doesn't come off as being not you, being authentic. And that's why building authentic brands is kind of what we do. We want to make sure it's still tying into that company. Make sure it's real. If that's the case, if you're a company that's technology and AI, it's part of who you are, your look and your DNA to kind of look that way. 100% lean into that, but still make sure it's consistent.
Mhm.
A lot of AI is getting so much better that, if you give it a product, there's a couple I want to try out now that it will actually utilize that product throughout versus switching products, because the product they had a different colored lid. I mean,
Mhm.
it wasn't their product, which to me was a big misstep, but they were so enamored and so wowed by the technology and how cool it was, and they could do it relatively cheaply, that
Yeah.
they missed the heart of who they were on it. So don't be totally wowed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the main part is, as you just clarified, it is the budget. Because, I mean, I spoke to somebody who's very huge in the production, and he owns his agency since like 1989. And obviously, they work with huge brands and huge budgets, but suddenly a business comes over that doesn't have that huge budget, but they still want a similar type of effect. he used AI to create something for that agent, and let me tell you, like, it got, like, a lot of responses to what the business was hoping to get, and with a small budget. So I think that's where AI utilization will happen. And in regards to you touching point on, like, AI callers, like, I completely agree with you there. People will prefer to speak to people rather than AI. I mean, I deal with FedEx to ship a couple of items every once in a while, and you're in that line with an AI, and I'm like, "I just wanna speak to somebody." Honestly, just somebody who knows what they're doing, a person, not an AI. But I think it will get much, much more better, and unfortunately, I think we'll get to the time that, you will only have AI callers, like, when you call to businesses, and I think that's when it will become the norm, and only then will people, like, start to kind of accept the reality. But right now, we're still on that fence.
And I think it was Google a couple years ago that came out with an agent that I think it was a hair salon they use to take the orders and stuff, and it was impressive, scary. You know, it
Uh-huh.
sounded genuine, and it could actually do some different things. It's scary, but I mean, I can see it as a tool. It's like you said, for cost effectiveness. But then all of a sudden, how are you going to differentiate from
Yeah.
somebody else? The good part about that is from answering the phone, you're going to be consistent with your brand. You're going to be able to utilize that and literally script it and to be able to answer in a way that I had one construction company I was working for, and I'm like, okay, somebody needs to talk to this lady on how she answers it because it's pretty rude, you know.
Okay, yeah,
So
okay,
she's,
absolutely,
but
and even though
but
it's a
they don't
human,
realize
right?
it. Yeah, I mean, it's construction, but there's still that's the first impression somebody gets. So the benefit of the AI is it would be able to be consistent from a brand standpoint
Mhm,
when
mhm,
talking.
mhm.
So
You know,
now
like,
I
it's
can
it's
see pluses and
crazy
minuses.
talking about this actually, 'cause a couple of years ago, I'd be like, "No, never." But actually, are these AI callers now. They actually fluctuate with the tones, and it's, like, genuinely and pausing and parsing your sentences, and it's like, it is getting better. They are trying more and more to kind of make sure people can't differentiate the difference, and that's kind of the scary part for me, because already on, like, social media you see these videos, you're like, I'm not actually sure if that's AI, but that's a little bit unrealistic by the content of, like, what's happening. Like, there were these bunnies, jumping on trampoline, and that video absolutely exploded. And thing is, if somebody paid close attention, they could see, like, some of the bunnies kind of merged. But thing is, you're on social media. You're only like your attention span is only like a couple of seconds. So you just see it, you're like, oh wow, that's cool. And obviously it like stays in your memory, right? You said like, what are we gonna come to in a few months or a few years' time?
Well, and you're looking at it from the eyes of someone who can identify it that way versus someone who's not thinking, they're just scrolling or
Yeah.
if it's they're watching TV and something comes up like that, they aren't cognitively thinking about, "Oh, is that AI generated?" And a lot of people most people can kinda tell. I mean, there might be something in the back of their mind going, "That just kinda looks a little off," and they
Yeah.
may
Yeah.
think, just
Yeah.
because the skin's too perfect or I mean, there's just certain things that just makes it kind of feel like it's not 100%. And you see social posts, you kinda click in and it's kinda like, "Okay, is that real?" And you go in, it's like, "AI, AI, AI." Everybody's
Yeah.
which is always fun, especially with photography and video posts. So,
Yeah,
anyway.
I have to tell you something actually scary if we're getting into this topic. I had a call with somebody, and I have to be honest with you. I have that kind of gut feeling like I was speaking to an AI, and I still to this day can't figure out whether it was a real person or not.
Isn't that I mean,
It's bizarre.
that's a sad state to be in of not knowing if you're actually talking to
Yeah,
someone because as humans, we wanna connect. We want community. We want to build those. And now all of a sudden it's like, "Okay, am I really talking to somebody?"
yeah, yeah. So yeah, we'll see what the world will come to for sure. In regarding to obviously Color 9 Creative, what is your next goal in the next year? Do you have any big kind of achievements you're hoping to get done?
Right now is building the book out, would be the biggest, kind of next step.
Mhm.
So to be totally transparent, I've been going through cancer treatments for the last year and a half and still have probably another year or so. So I'm not out meeting with a lot of people. I can't because my immune
Wow.
system and things like that.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's definitely not.
I
pleasant
appreciate that.
to be going through.
You know what? God's used it, and he's taken care of us and all that. So, thank you. I appreciate that.
But you know what? I mean, I'll just say, like, you look healthy. If you wouldn't have mentioned anything, I wouldn't even say you're going through treatment right now. So you still
So
got a
my
smile on your face, and that's the main part. Like, hopefully, everything goes through well and successfully.
it's going well.
Yeah.
It will. I anticipate it continuing. So my goals right now obviously have backed off on some of that right now. But I mean, it's like you had talked before. Color Nine's been around for a little over 19 years. So I've got clients and network still. So I'm still getting calls from potential clients right now. Like I had said before, that I shared information for that would be a big project from a branding standpoint. So looking for a company that either wants to rebrand, look at who they are, because just like you and I aren't the same as we were in high school
Mm.
or college, or as we grow, we mature, businesses do the same thing. They transition. I mean, most of the companies, Target has transitioned from when it has first started. So we need to look at our company and see if are we current to who we really are. So I work with companies to really look and see, take another look at their core values, their purpose statements, and see, do we need to realign? Are we on target to make sure? So those type of businesses, I love to work with as well. So I'm still obviously working with clients, but it's just coming. I'm not as actively going out
Yeah.
at this point, but still, God's taking care of us
Mhm.
to be able to work. He keeps bringing work in, and I take care of the clients that I have now.
No, that's great. Bill, if people were trying to find out more about your services or connect with you, where would you guide them?
First, I would go to color9creative.com. So color,
Mhm.
the number nine, creative.com. Bill Madden on LinkedIn is another great way to connect with me there. Reach out. If you've got questions, kind of probably be the best way. Otherwise, you can email me through the Color9 website if you've got any questions or like to talk or connect or however I can help somebody, whether it's in the Midwest where I live or the other side of the sea. Glad
Yeah.
to help out.
Bill, thank you so much for making the time for this podcast and being so transparent, sharing out pretty much your strategy and the steps that people can take to kind of sort out branding on their own with your free value on your website that they can go to as well. And obviously, what I find out most of the time is sometimes, especially business owners, it's nice to have that free value out there for them, but most of the time they don't have, the capability to do it themselves, even though it's all in front of them. So they will, in that case, get in touch with you where you can obviously advise them on the next steps.
Yep, love to help out that way.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. You have a great day.